And as we've already been discussing, practicing, the first stage of meditation, or the first deeper stage of meditation, is getting the mind to become more grounded and centered in the present moment, in the breathing body, because that's the only thing we have that we can use as an anchor to the present moment. And then dealing with the hindrances, trying to slow down the momentum of your wandering thoughts, the ability to endure distractions or irritations and aches or pains, and overcome sleepiness, especially that overcoming sleepiness, establishing a good posture, and then learning how to observe and let go of the thoughts. And it's not like we're trying to stop the thoughts. You won't be able to stop your thoughts. A lot of people saying in meditation, you have to stop your thoughts. Well, lots of luck. You're not going to stop them probably, but you slow them down and you learn to just watch them, and just as if the thoughts are sort of like, this, all these advertisements and news things that goes across the top of your computer screen, constantly going, and once in a while you may look at them, but you largely ignore them more. So in the same way, there's almost a continuous stream of thoughts going through the unconscious mind. And we normally don't know it because we're usually busy being distracted, in our daily life. But when you sit to meditate, you're no longer, deliberately active in doing things, then that constant stream of thoughts you can notice them. But we learn to just have that detached observation from them. So just as you are watching the sitting body, this is a kind of a gradual training. So in the beginning, we have you just watch the breathing, just sort of watching, okay, breathing in, breathing out, and then the sitting posture, sitting, breathing. So you're setting up this just detached observation, so that then when thoughts arise, that same detached observation is able to maintain that detachment from the thoughts, so you don't get lost so much in them. Although you still may, of course, but it's sort of like having a dog on a leash. Let's say you have an untrained dog in your yard, and he used to run around after everybody, barking at the mailman and chasing bicycles going down the street and getting the neighbors' trash cans and so on. So you put a leash around its neck and tie it to a tree. And then, so the dog will start to run after somebody, but he reaches the end of that leash. And so he can't actually, bite somebody. He reaches the end of the leash and he keeps doing that. Then he realizes it's futile, and eventually he sits down by the tree. He stops running after it. But so the connection to the breathing body acts as that leash. So the mind starts to run out, but then, part of it is connected to sitting and breathing. So it runs a little bit, but then the mindfulness checks itself and then can just observe that, and then the thought basically falls away. Because if we don't follow the thoughts, we just learn to be aware of thinking, it usually just falls away very quickly. Because it only stays in the mind when we give attention to it and start identifying with it, wanting to think about it. So that's why the training and learning how to just observe the body with that detachment helps them to do that the same with the mind, and then also the same with like aches and pains or other distractions. We try to see everything as just these impersonal phenomena. Oh, just a thought. Why should I run after that? Well, it's just anger. It's just sense desire. Why am I? No need to run after that. You see it as just a little bubble of thought, or a bubble of whatever emotion it might be. So that's the skill in meditation, is learning to develop these kind of skills of the mindfulness and the concentration. Both they have to be balanced, mindfulness and concentration. People talk to them about being separate things, but they're not really separate. They're just two aspects of the mind. One is the aspect of holding the attention on a certain area, and the other is being alert, having more kind of a detached alertness. A lot of people say, how can we do that at the same time? Well, we can, but it takes time to practice to do it. The mind is very multifunctional, can do a lot of things, more or less simultaneously, but because our minds are constricted and we have no training of it, we can't do much of it except being a slave to our thoughts and habits. So anyway, so the first stage is learning how to become centered and grounded in the present moment, letting go of the hindrances. And then a lot of people think, well, what's next? Well, the second stage of the meditation then is developing insight. That means tuning in to the flow of impermanence. So now you've gotten a detached observation, like sitting in a balcony seat at the movie theater. And you're just watching this body, okay, sitting, itch over here, pain over here, sound going through the ear, thoughts going through the back of the mind, but you have this, just like you'd watch a movie with detachment. But then you tune in, you don't get complacent with that, because while you're doing that, because of that present moment awareness, it feels so nice, and there's all the struggle of the mind is kind of gone down. The tendency to get complacent and just want to space out or get too relaxed happens. And the mind sinks into kind of a limbo, and it doesn't go anywhere from that. So you have to avoid that. You have to. So the next stage is doubling down and focusing on impermanence. That means notice how quickly everything is changing in the body-mind process. And what seems to last a few seconds is in fact just a series of short arising and vanishing. For example, right now you are hearing this talking, right? And you just think, oh, monks talking. But if you tune into each syllable, each of those is rising and passing away. So that's what we tune into. We break up what is considered to be a whole into its parts of just separate little arising and vanishing. And same way with body sensations. So you can notice within one in-breath, there's many short little, you can notice those movements of expanding and contracting, again, especially if you're focusing in this area. Or other sensations, even an itch or a pain. It's not just one static knot or something. It's very organic. It's many little things happening. So that's what we tune into. That's what's called tuning into impermanence. It's a specific training, because it's easy to miss it when the mind is clinging on and reacting to things. We're reacting to things because we think they're, something permanent or real or something. But it's a very specific training. This is the Vipassana training. Actually, Vipassana means seeing impermanence, seeing the way things actually are. So it's like turning up, you have to turn up the power of the microscope. And just, even while the breath is going in and out, there's sensation, come over here, sensation here. And you're just following those moment to moment without letting the mind cling on to it. See, you've already set up that, That's why the first stage is you have to set up that detached awareness with the concentration. Only then can you effectively observe the flow of impermanence and not get dragged away by it. And then you can see how quickly things are just coming and going. Actually, the Buddha called this the all. The Buddha was giving a lecture one time to the monks. He said, "Monks, I'll teach you the all." They said, "Really? I'm listening." So the Buddha said, "What is the all? It's the eye and seeing, the ear and hearing, the nose and smelling, the tongue and tasting, the body and feeling, the mind and cognizing." And that's all there is. What we call our life are just moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking that are just coming and going one after another at a very high speed. But because our mind is dull and clinging to things, we don't see that impermanence. We don't see that rapid change so much. And that's why it's only in meditation and through the specific kind of training that you can see that. So that's really the next stage of practice, is tuning into the flow of impermanence. And you might ask why? Well, because that is how one develops insight into essentially emptiness. And also it helps you to, the mind not to, cling and react to the things that are passing through us. So it's the first aspect of deeper wisdom. So anyway, that is what I would recommend, or when the mind is ready to gradually shift over into that flow of impermanence. But a lot of people don't like to do that, or they get stuck in the calmness of just the concentration. And that we call that the Trap of Tranquility. The TOQ, Trap of Tranquility. That means, when if you gain some success, and like if you can count your breaths from 1 to 10 without getting lost. Actually, how many of you tried that? You can count your breaths without getting lost. And how many got lost sometimes, had to start again at 1? So anyway, yeah, if you can count your breaths from 1 to 10 without getting lost, I would say that's stage 1 of concentration. Even that is kind of mediocre, but it's night and day from our normal neurotic mind states. So, that really concentration is necessary first. But that's usually, if you can do that, then the mind is probably centered enough that you can start then opening up, leaving just the breathing and opening up to notice other first the body sensations coming and going, and at the same time sound, because you can't shut off the senses. I mean, things they're always coming through. So in between, sounds are coming in. And then, of course, our thoughts. So usually there's not too many smells and tastes or sights coming and going in the meditation, because if your eyes are closed and so on. But the body sensations, thoughts, and sounds, there's always usually a lot of those going through our senses at any one time. And so it's you gradually start tuning into that. And that makes the mind very, very bright, because it takes a lot of clarity and stillness to be able to see so many things coming in. And it builds up speed. And the more you're centered and grounded, you'll be amazed at how many individual sensations, thoughts, or sounds you can see arising and vanishing. I mean, even in the space of 5 or 10 seconds, you can see hundreds, because you've turned up the power of the microscope. And it's like, instead of seeing one drop of blood, you see many, in one drop of blood, hundreds of thousands of cells and molecules and so on. But that's because of the power of the concentration. That's why the concentration is necessary for reaching this next stage, especially. So I'm just saying that just to let you know that, what is the next stage, because so many people ask, what do I do next? What do I do next? I've been watching the breath for 10 years, what do I do next? I don't even know what's next. So that's the next. And not to be satisfied with just, this kind of spacing out and this kind of calmness and so on. That's a very mediocre state of concentration, at least from a meditative point of view, Dhamma point of view. So that's these are just some things to be aware of and try to work on. But again, it's really trying to overcome the hindrances is really the hardest part, and learning how to maintain a good erect posture and creating that detached, onlooking awareness. Now, how many of you, I've mentioned many times while we're doing yoga and the meditation, try to feel the eyes and the sockets, and from that point, kind of to be able to feel the outline of the body. How many of you think you have done that? That point behind the eyes helps to have this, feel the outline of the body. So that's really one of the most powerful methods for setting up this type of mental space for the deeper meditation, especially vipassana type of meditation. So anyway, do you have any last sort of questions about the meditation? No, you're not. Look, it's not a mental image. It's not like a colored image of a body.
I started seeing colors. So was I like hallucinating?
Well, yeah, not hallucinating, but the mind can create so many things. It's a stimulation of the optic nerve and so on. It can create the colors. When I say the outline of the body, it's like a collage of sensations. It's not a visual image. You're actually seeing your head, but it's an outline. You know, like there's a very good analogy of a child's coloring book. So a child's coloring book, if you look at it, you see many dots on a page, right? But usually nothing stands out until you connect the dots, right? With a certain color. You connect these dots with one color, these with another, and then Donald Duck comes out. So the same way, that's how our mind is working all the time. Out of all these dots of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking, the mind, just like Google, is creating this, projecting and creating these images that feel, like a sitting body. But that's being done by the mind, but it's a very skillful, and it creates, or your foot or hand or any individual body part. The only way we recognize it is because of the kind of sensations that are there, and the brain is always geolocating these things. If it's something here, then it must be an ear or a head. If it's something down there, it must be a toe or a foot. And it's very much similar to a computer. With Google, you just type in a couple words, and then Google starts projecting what the thing is, what the word you want to looking for, and so on. So our mind and brain and memory is doing the same thing. So, did that answer the question? Breathing body. What does it mean? Does your body breathe? Well, don't focus here. That's what I've been teaching. You missed the first day, so you missed the most important instructions. You focus in here. This is where you really feel the body is expanding of the abdomen, the rib cage, of the chest. Because it's right in the middle, so it's easy to then to feel the other parts of the body around it. If you're trying to feel the air going in out of the nostrils, it's a very fine little sensation, and it's totally disconnected from your feet or legs or any other part of the body. And that's why that is not recommended for Vipassana meditation. And that's why focusing the breathing in the center to feel the expanding and contracting, that's more compatible with this type of body-oriented mindfulness.
At one point you say, who is the irritated? Who is, we are, so what would be the answer there? Who is? Is that the person?
You have to answer that.
The way I answered it was, for me, is the ego. Is who is irritated.
Yes, basically, yes. But the ego is ultimately an illusion. That's the point. We think there's an I in here that's doing and deciding things, but that's created by the mind, as I already mentioned with the baby, right? The baby doesn't have that ego consciousness up until it reaches about 6 months. It starts starting to get the sense of an I, because we give it a name and people start giving it things. But it's not anything that's permanently real. It's been created. And so that's the meaning of who is it, angry or any other emotion. It's the identity. The imagined self is identifying that it owns these things. And that's the cause of suffering. If there's nobody to get angry or nobody to have these emotions, then the suffering ceases. There's no suffering. Suffering is only for a self, for an I that suffers. So, but that's a very deep Dhamma to understand, and you can only understand it through meditation. There's no other way. Even intellectually understanding it, you might intellectually understanding it, saying, "Oh yeah, that's cool." Yeah, but when it actually grips you, no, you become totally subject to it. It's only by developing the systematic process that we've been talking about, in which the Buddha taught. It's not my own teaching, this is the Buddha's teaching. People have to read the lines of his teaching and understand it. And that's why he was called the Buddha. Who else could devise something? Even Einstein didn't know.
Sometimes when I get into that deep relaxation, I think I feel from the tip of my toes to the top of my head, I can feel in there. It's like what, like the sitting posture. That's what I think.
Yeah. But you need to train yourself to do it not only in a sitting posture, but standing posture, walking. You develop this inbuilt video camera. That's a very good little an analogy to remember. You know, our mind is like a video camera. Just as you can go out and hold a camcorder outside and film, if you get control of your mind, you can control the mind that way. But most people have no idea. The mind controls them instead of you controlling the mind, you controlling the camera. But it's all, it's all a gradual training. That's why the best training is starting with the sitting and breathing. Once you're able to do that, you can transpose that into just about any other type of activity. And if you can't do it when you're sitting and breathing, I doubt you're going to be able to develop that in any other way. Okay? So, go ahead and get into our meditation.